to commemorate July 4th, 2023, decided to cover some of the madness that's going on in France. The top story. Some of the new aspects of the burning and looting and all the other different types of things happening there. So there's so many things to cover. But this is a formula of post-modernity that definitely was started in the U.S. So on this day of celebration of freedom, I dedicate this analysis because it definitely this type of operation started in the US, but it's now in France and probably be in the UK, or if it hasn't been in the UK already. Where else could this happen? Well, more or less anywhere, but let's just look into the details, shall we? So there's a lot of similarities. It's like a Hollywood formula. If you look into Hollywood films, especially in modern times where they're too lazy to come up with new material, they just repeat different themes, like guy meets girl, a guy has to prove himself, guy loses girl, guy wins girl back. Yay, happy ending, everybody loves the movie. So, but this is more like social theater, which is also carried out by Leninists. So, and this is something people are like, oh no, Leninism. Well, let's just simplify. What did Lenin conclude? What makes Leninism different than Marxism? Well, he believed that there would be a revolutionary vanguard. So let's just redefine that, should we, to be a minority of people holding on tooth and nail to their positions in some type of social, political body. So you have the French Leninists, you have the UK Leninists, you have the US Leninists, you have the Russian Leninists, you have the Chinese Leninists. So these are the people that are politically connected, but not just politically connected. So you have to think, well, how does it all fit together? Well, you have the political class. You have, let's just think of them as the privileged classes. So in a modern context, so it's the political class. It's then, of course, in order for the political class to operate, they have the judiciary under their control, which is to say their people. Then you have the security forces under their control, so police. Then you have the financial class. So again, who's more important than who? It's really hard to say. I would say probably the buck stops with the financial class, but on their own, they're sort of powerless, right? If they lose control of the security forces, they're done. So they probably have like different layers of internal security, just like we saw in the whole Prigozhin thing. Is that these political leaders have their own private internal security and internal security departments that are always spying on everyone else. Oh, sorry, the journalistic and informational class, also very important. Because they can't create theater, which is to say allow mass outbreaks of violence to happen, unless they're able to explain it in an ideological context that suits their narrative, which is they allow these mass violent outbreaks to take place for the purpose of class extermination. So just, this is, again, then we come back to Leninism. So they decided to move the struggle, as they said, to class struggle. Because you have to think, Russia was not a homogeneous state, but it was, at least in St. Petersburg and Moscow, it sort of was, where the centralized power took place. So you're talking about just, you're not talking about this dimension that we have today where the body politic is divided up by all these different groups that don't like each other. Like, this divide and conquer process, as in France, has not taken place. Now, how did they bring in divide and conquer groups or revolutionary groups? Socially non-congruent groups? Well, they had to import them. And how did they do that? Well, they used a humanitarian reason. So first they destroyed, for example, Syria and Libya. And then there was massive waves. They organized then the exportation of these new proletariats, which is to say revolutionary actors, into their countries under the pretext of humanitarianism. Now, these people are non-integratable, that you just can't bring in foreign aspects, foreign populations, say, oh yeah, sure, we're all the same, just you get yourself a job and start contributing to the community. That doesn't happen. But they see the informational roof that they control are always explaining away these things in the interest of the revolutionary vanguard. Now, this is so funny that they think that they're revolutionary and that they're a vanguard. More or less, what would be a modern description of them? Tyrants, criminal, authoritarian tyrants, something like that. A network, an organized, tyrannical shakedown operation, something like that. But you would think, like, when the whole country is on fire and people are burning down buildings, you have to think, wait a second, they're not being targeted, the revolutionary vanguard. No, they're just creating the theater. The people that are being attacked are the classes that they once suppressed and or exterminated. Ideally, they would just work away as slaves, with no say in the judiciary, no say in the politics, no say in the finances. Oh, and no say in the free press, because that would contradict their narrative. So you have, so again, all this burning down of things, which in the U.S. has happened in multiple different cities. Now it's happening in France, multiple different, same formula. So they even showed the leader, like, this is one of the funnier aspects, like Macron, who is a complete imposter. So political imposterism is one way you can see them. See, Lenin was all about being a Bolshevik. He was all about openly stating that there should only be a one-party system. The new Leninists, the neo-Leninists, they don't do that. They like to give the impression that nothing's changed or that they're operating in a democracy. So they have their operators on both sides of the aisles. It's a bipartisan affair. So, but they showed Macron, while this like the second night of rioting, he showed up at an Elton John concert. They videotaped him like clapping to some gay song. But why did they decide to distribute that in their informational, through their informational core? Well, it's to demoralize the people looking for harsher political solutions. Because our social hierarchy, our natural social hierarchy, is to look to leaders during crises to solve them. So what would a king do, in other words? Well, a king would just get rid of them all. But what does the imposter do? The imposter is doing the chicken dance at an Elton John concert. So it creates a demoralization effect that the politics is not the solution. But what is the other solution? Well, there is no other solution, because it's more or less a totalitarian. Because the journalist, then they go to the journalist, like, what are you doing here? And then the journalists come with all their fake narratives, so blaming the victim. So the reason why all of these imported people that can't be integrated socially decided to attack you, because they do attack the middle classes or lower classes, the working classes, or the leveraged classes. Think of either way. If you're financially leveraged, you're not in their network. Now, the people in their network are ideologically networked. They're either in or they're out. So when they're told to read a script that the reason for all of these attacks on you is because you're a racist, or your society is racist, if they don't say that script, they will be fired and replaced with someone that will. A lot of them are women. Women that would otherwise be washing stairs, or they import them as well from India or Pakistan or someplace else. They give them a job. They get to wear a little business blouse around. And they just have to repeat this narrative, maybe say 10 minutes on camera, the same narrative that all their other insiders have agreed on, right? The vanguard of profiteers, and then it's done. They get to continue on living their little lifestyle because they said it, what they needed to say, which is more or less a blame the victim narrative. So when they don't do it, they're out. They do it, they stay in. They become part of the toxic blob that doesn't get fired. So let's look at the judiciary a second. Now, the judiciary is something they love. It's something probably they started with politics and the judiciary. Just from, if you look at like how mafias. Oh, by the way, criminals are also a part of their network. Because criminals get things done, they don't have any problems. They'll just take the money. So the financial classes are people who are wealthy. They work with the criminal classes because the criminal classes work for money. So they need something done that's expedient. Some journalist is off the plantation, or some politician decides to do it the right way instead of their way. Then they kick some money to some people that would do anything for money, and then that's how they address those problems. So, but the mafia type structures, criminal type structures, even predating neo-Leninism, they were big into the judiciary. So the judiciary is sort of just, it's supposed to just, first off, it doesn't get any scrutiny. Politically, it doesn't get any scrutiny from the informational classes. They're just considered, everybody assumes that they're just doing their jobs, unless there's a scandal, unless they do become political at some point, which has happened, but that just indicates that the judiciary is a complete and utter toxic blob under neo-Leninism. So whether or not you're going to get any type of deal, any type of justice there, uh, probably not. It's going to be 50-50 at best, but I would say most likely not. Sort of like the situation that Ukrainians are very familiar with, Russians are familiar with. Those are the later stages of neo-Leninism, by the way. So they want to get rid of the classes in between them and the absolute bottom. So more or less they like to be at the absolute top and then have an absolute bottom, and they get to pick and choose who comes out of that absolute bottom. The people in the middle that don't have to deal with them or feel like they have autonomy or feel like they have a say in their governments, that's their class enemies. So you would think that in a democracy, right, those would be the people that would have a say. Well, neo-Leninists don't see it that way. They see it that they have the ideas, they have the position, and they don't want to lose it to any. They don't want to do any type of power sharing. That's why they adopted it. So we have these assumptions from the middle classes, the leveraged, financially leveraged classes, that they would be working in our interest, but in fact they're working to exterminate us, either socially, economically, politically. Or again, degrade us to the point that we're at the bottomest of working classes. So we go to a factory that is run by run by people that they've appointed, that they own, that they bought out perhaps from somebody from one of our classes a long time ago, and now it's become a managerial thing where they'll just keep you working, throw you out on your ass if you don't comply to any of their mandates, which are also now political and toxic as well, because they're already attacking you, attacking the victim, because they don't want political cohesion, they want division. They want a lot of ill will and misdirection in the lower classes, which they consider necessary, but not overly much expendable, which is also why they'll also start wars. Just invent them via alternative reality. Oh, they threatened us by trying to join an alliance, so we need to attack them first, type of stuff. We have an excess of native proletarians. We want more of the international kind because that's more divisive. So let's throw 100,000 into the trenches. Why would they do that? Well, it's just politically expedient for them. That's not good for society. It's not good for the country. It's an insurance policy for them. 100,000 less potential class enemies, non-connected, non-affiliated people with basic expectations about representational governments and cultures. That's not what they want. They want you on a 996, right, working in entities they control. And again, if you don't do what they say, then you are demoted into the working or leverage classes, period. They have a high level of conformity within their ranks. So, today everyone's supposed to wear these colors. Today everyone needs to wear, a funny hat. Today everyone has to say that, this is gay day. So everybody better come out in a rainbow suit. Today we're going to have the big supreme leader of the one-party system is going to come out and give a boring speech. You better show up and you better clap like crazy. Like not a golf cloud. Look at them in North Korea. They want a fanaticism. Not fanatic, or they'll say, oh, the 5 least enthusiastic, get rid of them. Replace them with some new people. Trump up some corruption charges. So it is about conformity at the top. So the people also, Macron, the imposters, it is about betraying where you came from. They want you in on the new thing. There is no loyalty to the old thing. So again, a lot of these women with business suits, no man at home, or if they did have a man, they're divorced, and or lesbians. They don't have any real connection to traditional, natural society. They get the spotlight. They get to choose who they roll with and who they don't. They're a big part of the new class of neo-Leninists. Big part of it. People give them the benefit of the doubt. People think they couldn't be that maniacal, that much of a traitor to their people. No, they don't care. It's all about the money. What do they get in the form of a paycheck, and what type of lifestyle do they get to impostorize themselves into? That's what matters to them. Put me in front of the camera, I'll say it. That's sort of where they're coming from. So, men are the enemy. These a lot of them are in the judiciary. A lot of families that are busted up. A lot of men that get completely shafted in the courts as class enemies, treated as class enemies. Female judges, female legal assistants. Almost a complete female operation. But, of course, of the neo-Leninist variety, if any of them step out of line, they're gone like that. It's just amazing how few of them there are, that they're, like, exceptional. Like some of the radical genderism and stuff. There's been a few that, of course, simps pick up on because, oh, women, look, even women are saying this. They like to spotlight them, but it's amazing how few there are. And also, they don't really recover ideologically. I mean, they might not go to the next extremity of ideological conformity, but they're still, 70% there. Think that they're equal or deserve to be in all these other different leadership positions, which are nothing but ridiculous. But again, only ridiculous if you think in terms of what is good leadership and not in terms of neo-Leninism. Neo-Leninism, it makes perfect sense that you have insiders at the top and not real leadership. It makes perfect sense. Absolutely perfect sense. Because you have to think, if they lose control of any part of that complex, if they lose control of the informational roof, they look bad. They lose control of the judiciary, they could get busted. They lose control of the finances, they won't be able to pay the security forces. They lose control of the security forces, well, everybody's scared. So, but if you think about it, that's not all that much to manage either. How many people make up at least the management of those areas? Not very much. Maybe for France, how many people? Of course, it's a spectrum. I mean, the cops that are out there dressed up like robots as part of the street theater. How many are there? 45,000 leveraged proles. They're not too concerned about 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 of them. They've got to do everything that they say. Jumping jacks show up here 40:30 a.m. and have fireworks and bottles thrown at you. If you don't like that, you're fired. They're not too concerned about those. Now, the further up you go into more responsible positions, such as what the services that aren't proclaimed, all those people need to be 120% on board, and also claiming that they're not, like, oh, I'm not affiliated with anybody, I'm here, that's when you start getting into the imposteristic levels. The more of an imposter the person is, the more important the role is for the neo-Leninist. So, or at least a public-facing role. Once you get into the toxic blob areas, these people fly under the radar unless they would be subjected to some type of investigation or review, at which point they would glow in the dark. Like, what the hell is this person doing here? But when does that happen? Like, were the neo-Leninists thrown out of Russia? When did that happen? I mean, Lenin was rolling around there since 1917. Has their complex been broken up, or is it just changed and adapted? Is it now exporting its political model to places like France and the U.S.? Or is it imploding, as people suggest? Well, I guess time will tell, but it's not imploding in France. That's just a street theater. It's them carrying out their class extermination policies on a more radicalized level. So they're importing more mercenary leverage classes to subdue the other enemy classes. It's just like that. And it is highly organized and it's highly funded by both the security and the financial classes, as well as informationally from the informational class. The judiciary, for example, all these rioters, they just let them go. They don't go to prison. They might make some exceptions, like, okay, these 100, they're too dangerous. They overplayed their part, so we don't need them. It's not like they can't find more of the same worldwide if they need them, or if they feel they need them. So that's what's going down. That's what's going down in France on July 4th, 2023. Informational class blaming the victims classes via their privileged positions. The quaps and cops playing their street theater role, and the people divided, conquered, and Stockholm syndrome. So we're the authorities. So when they come screaming like the peasants, help us, then there they are greeted by the neo-Leninists. Okay, we'll take care of it. Just don't you worry. Don't you worry. We'll take care of it. And go back to sleep. And make sure you blame yourself for this. And leave us alone in our areas. Don't write any little mad messages making us look like the criminals that we are. And we'll take care of this. We've got this. And we'll make sure that we bring in more of their divisive and hateful people into positions of authority, because we know that if you see one of those, you'll just turn around on your heels and go back to your leveraged existence, or just disappear, or if you're a thinking man, just drink yourself to death and not bother us. But other than that, everything's going to stay the same. There's going to be no changes in the judiciary, no changes in the politics, no changes in the financial sector, no changes in the informational sector, and no changes in the security sector, except further radicalization and imposterism. So we have a few positions open every year for people that are willing to be ideological conformists. So you're going to have to fight for those positions. Who will be more of a traitor to their own people and culture to get past that barrier. And we're going to handpicked and select some of the most degenerate ones. And other than that, you all best get back to working. Working more and more because, financial classes are ramping up inflation because, of course, our positions were covered. We'll give ourselves a pay raise, but we're already doing quite well for ourselves. But for anyone else who had like life savings or on a fixed income, you're going to get a lot less. So that means the leverage on the lowest class, which is again the dual classes, top and bottom. The bottom class gets worse. So you best want to try to get into the top class, and you best want to be a super conformist. Keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, yeah, have a lot of fun living in those wonderful neighborhoods that we've created. And in France, it's hilarious because in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they built a lot of affordable housing for the working class. Really cool projects built by architects like Le Corbusier and a lot of forward-thinking visionary people who believed that France would long-term be a very cool place to live, and they were sort of right about that, at least from the standpoint of climate. There are other fake containerization of an argument. But now they're just filled with monsters. The neo-Leninists were like, wait a second, this is unifying the working classes. We don't want that. We need to import monsters we want to make these places monster zones. So if we ever need to create theater, violent theater, then we have these repositories of monsters we can let loose on the other classes that might be getting too uppity. So let's time it like every 5 years, every 10 years, some type of incident. Oh, and by the way, this is also something directly from the US, same model. So just one stupid incident gets filmed, and then it's multiplied and amplified via the social media networks and coordinated with irregular forces. So it's like a flash mob type of operation. So, it's not just a headless group of monsters. There's also community organizers, intellectual terrorists that are telling these communities why the people they're victimizing are really the perpetrators. The wig flipping, communist type of way of operation. They have that going on. See, and you have to think about that. What was Lenin's mindset when he let loose all of the terror in Russia? Well, he thought he was losing his grip on power. So what happened? All these extra legal criminal group collaborations took place. People were getting disappeared. No trial, nothing. So that legacy they don't eschew that. They don't distance themselves from that. They embrace that. That's how they won. That's how they maintained their monopoly on violence and power. So they don't, again, these are people, no morals, nihilists, pure power players. They know they would be at the bottom unless they cut a deal with the top. And so cutting a deal with the top means doing these types of terroristic actions and being covered by the top to do them. So, all right, now we're on what is it, the fourth, fifth day of rioting? Maybe 10 days. Maybe that's what they need. And here's also something, you have a new crop of young people coming up, so they need to do these operations, like if not once every 5 years, certainly once every 10 years. So same MO, different technology, same results: demoralization of the native, what otherwise unified populations, and enrichment and suppression via the insider classes. So I think that's about it. That's one way of looking at it. A lot of other details, but that should give you the gist of it. And so this is the planet we live on, the level of civilization we have today. So, but I would also like to encourage everyone else to start thinking outside the box and becoming also a lot more self-reliant and a lot less leverage. If you're buying into mortgages, 30-year mortgages, and your relationship is dependent on that, such as your outlook on life, you need to just fundamentally question all of that. Not be financially leveraged, not become demoralized, not can think that all of this is normal or good, not become a conformist, not look to be in with the insiders, but looking for a lot different ways of doing things, which might involve accepting more poverty, but being richer in so many other different ways, including the what is not considered to be even something that exists, being a lot richer in the dignity department, the integrity department, and also the freedom department. Be free. Just realize, like, when they throw all these balls at you, it's like the Matrix. You could slow things down and just let them miss you with that jazz. Do not jump on the bandwagon, don't get run over by it, and don't expect really anything but more of the same from these bad actors. Bad actors, yet the imposterism, I gotta say, their level of imposterism, it's really fun to watch. If you've got a comedic eye instead of a tragic eye, it's fun to watch them. I had to develop that. But once you have, it's just never-ending source of material. It's just, you could laugh yourself to sleep, but you also don't have to be focused on the agitatory and infuriating things. Because if you go down that road, you're losing. This is another thing. I think you could psychologically analyze Lenin. He gave in to ill will, to hate. He also gave in to greed, and he also gave in to delusion. So the results of all of his machinations and explanations and rationalizations was not good for Russia, was not good for the world. So these people who have this power, these ill-gotten positions, they're not doing anything good for the world. So not only are they not doing good things for the world, but they will not receive good things in return. That's the simplest, most basic morality out there. You do bad, you get bad. Do good, get good. That's it. Thanks for listening.